going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you can call the roll, please, Mr. Blackcode.
Jennifer Harden.
Here.
Linda Grassi.
Here.
Tom Heck.
Here.
Lori Kniske.
Here.
Jack Miley.
Here.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I would like to remind everyone this is a meeting of the public of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting in the public participation section on the agenda. First up is the approval of the board minutes from the January 27, 2021 meeting. If I can have a second, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Is there any discussion? Not call the roll, please.
Lori Kniske.
Aye.
Jack Miley.
Aye.
Jennifer Harden.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Motion carried. And that brings us to special reports.
We have one special report scheduled for tonight, but before we get started, I'm going to do something kind of impromptu. I was going to discuss in my report some of the discussions that are revolving around commencement and prom. And we had a meeting this past week with Mr. Liatzos, myself, and Jamie McIntyre, a couple hours worth of trying to brainstorm about what we can and cannot do. And there are some new things that came out of the governor's office. So I would like Mrs. McIntyre to talk just a little bit about what's going on, to give the board the idea that we are still working on it. We're looking at a possible outdoor commencement in our stadium with a couple of rain dates scheduled along those lines.
So the current plan A is that we would commence at noon on June 6th, which is the traditional date that we had already picked. We will be using the field. We will place a stage in the end zone furthest away from the actual field house, and we will be able to utilize all 5,000 seats within the stadium, along with some track area for spectators. That brings our percentage of 30% of capacity up to 4 tickets per graduate, which is our traditional number that we had at the Fine Arts Center. It will also allow for, according to the governor, some general admission. So if we do need to have a couple overflow situations where we do need to have a couple extra people come, it's not that big of a deal at this point. He's also hopeful that as the spring goes by, he'll be able to take that percentage up, which might mean that we could get over 4 tickets, but we're unsure of that at this point. The graduates will be sitting on the field. We've already contracted Rock the House Entertainment to take care of a live stream and a digital download of the actual piece. Since we are doing the plan of noon on June 6th, we also are going to look at a 4 p.m. ceremony if rain comes in the morning, and we'll use robocall, social media, headers to take care of letting everybody know that we're going to push it back. We've already contracted them too for a backup date of June 7th. We're unsure of the evening time slot exactly, but that gives us a secondary date that if Sunday's a wash, we still have Monday. And if it decides to rain all of June, we are looking at doing the following weekend a stage walk within Riverside High School utilizing the Riverside stage, just so that we can have some presentation of diploma available to the students. Now, all of this still needs to be approved by the Lake County General Health District. There are some other plans that we did bring to the table, but this seems the best, keeping it at Riverside, providing a stage for the students to walk across. Those were their big things when we pulled about a third of the class, and then it also allows them to all be with their friends. For prom, we're waiting of the governor's guidance about dancing. As of right now, if we were to have a prom, our senior class is 350, actually over 350. Halls are limited to 300 right now, so we wouldn't even be able to allow the entire senior class to attend if they wanted to. Secondary, there is no dancing permitted, so once the guidance is re-released in the next week or two, hopefully we can figure out the next step to see if prom is on the radar. We do have it tentatively scheduled May 1st, so we have a date, we have a theme, we just need to wait to see if that's going to look like a prom enough to be able to actually present prom to the seniors. If not, we also do have a June date set for an outdoor senior dance that would obviously take the hold and allow the seniors to have that final celebration, as long as, once again, dancing is permitted.
Would you be limiting it to senior class then for prom?
We're not gonna make any decisions on that right now. Most schools are.
Okay.
Most schools are saying no guests, seniors only, but also most schools that have released anything prom-wise, they have actually stated that it's no dancing, just a dinner. So I'm kind of happy that we're still waiting to see what that guidance looks like, because when you do tell students, especially ones who've had their entire senior year of extras kind of taken away, you say there's no dancing, that's just gonna lock in. So it's nice that we can hold off and wait to see what he says in a couple weeks.
If everything works out well, we can consider maybe having that type of ceremony every year.
Yeah.
Except, we'll have the students on the field, except Alex. Alex will be on the track because last time he was on the field, he got hurt.
Good one.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you.
The Riverside Local School District is proud to introduce the students who run the Recognizing RHS podcast. This student-run podcast is dedicated to recognizing the accomplishments of the students and staff at Riverside High School. Tonight, the Recognizing RHS team joins us to share more about their exciting project. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bassett first.
So, nice to see everyone. Chris Bassett, Assistant Principal of Riverside Campus. We are proud to recognize the Recognizing RHS group here. 4 students came tonight to share a little bit about their student-led initiative. This is what's exciting about this. This is a true student-led initiative. They decided to do this, and they're taking complete onus in the whole thing. It's exciting to see this kind of initiative here at the campus. They have a full presentation. I didn't ask them to prepare all this, and they put this all together. We're very excited to have them. They also have two of their side leadership teachers, Jamie McIntyre and Jeff Eccles, in attendance. They're going to share a little bit on their end of what they're experiencing too. But I'm going to turn it over to the students because they've got some exciting things to share with you tonight. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Should we stay here? Perfect. All right. Thank you. Okay, so hi everyone. We are Recognizing RHS, and so what Recognizing RHS is, it's a student-ran podcast, like Dr. Bassett said. And we are dedicated to recognizing the accomplishments and the positivity that goes on for the students and the staff of Riverside High School. How do I?
Down.
Down? Perfect. Thank you. So who are we? I'm Lexi Wade, and I am involved in Recognizing RHS National Honor Society. I am the vice president of my class, and I have been a 3-year attorney for the mock trial team. And I'm in the side class. I am involved in cross country and track. I've been doing those both since 7th grade. I am on the swim team. That was brand new, something I just decided to do this year. And I'm a cheerleader, and I competitively dance at Fairport Dance Academy. And I also just recently got a job at the new Smoothie King. So what I'm in charge of is branding. So I do community outreach through social media, emails, Google Forms, and I do a lot of communication with the outside people, like the people that we interview and other administrators and teachers. And I'm in charge of the student and staff shoutouts.
All right, my name is Henry Bush, and the things I'm involved with, I'm first of all with Recognizing RHS, and then I've been doing NHS since last year. I'm also in student council, and this year's my first year. And then I've been doing mock trials since my freshman year as well. And then I'm in the side class this year. I also play football and track through the school. And then I do a rec soccer league and a rec basketball league. And then I also work at Smoothie King. And my role for our team is I'm kind of the tech guy, so I do a lot of the audio clips and editing, and then I do the graphic designing for our logos and our posters. So I'm kind of behind the scenes a lot of the times.
Hi, I'm Reagan McNally. I'm involved in Recognizing RHS. I'm also involved in side class. I've been an attorney in mock trial for 2 years. I'm also a cheerleader and I do track and field. I'm also involved in yearbook class. I'm a competitive dancer at Fairport Dance Academy, and I'm an active volunteer at Menor United Methodist Church. So I'm in charge of writing the introductions and the outros to all of our episodes. I also focus on who we're going to interview and the questions we want them to ask. And then I kind of make the game plan on what we want to focus on during the episode for each guest and what we want to highlight with the guests.
All right, and then hi, my name is Alex Mallocker. I'm a part of Recognizing RHS also. I've done mock trial for 2 years. I am a part of the side class. I've been doing football and basketball since I've been in 7th grade. And then I'm a part of an outside lifting program called ADC, and then I currently work at Smoothie King also. And my job for the podcast is that I'm in charge of the weekly rundowns, and so what that kind of is about is I contact the coaches and the supervisors for each team, and then I talk with them about like big things that have happened that week, and then I put that all into the episode, and then that's like part of the episode each week. All right. So what is recognizing RHS? So our biggest thing is trying to spread positivity and include everybody in the school, because usually at high school, the stereotype is that like football is such a big thing and basketball like the big sports. But what we're about is like including everybody. So we want all the clubs and all like the little activities that don't usually get like talked about. We like to bring all of that together. And then just spread positivity is like our big brand, because we feel like that's such a big thing and it can like make a difference in our school.
So we write, film, edit, and upload each episode ourselves. We obviously have help from Mac and Eccles and multiple other adults, but we do mostly everything by the 4 of us, and we put the whole podcast together. So where do we upload our episodes? We use an app called Podbean, and it's like a free app, and you can download it and listen to all of our episodes. Podbean is super accessible. It's available on iOS, Android, and on web browsers. The account works similar to like a Spotify, and you can even listen to them on Alexas. We hope to one day move more towards an actual Spotify account. Podbean is great, but we are right now on a free trial. So when we run out of our hours, we will no longer be able to use Podbean. So this is what we're using right now, but we are going to need something else in the future.
So to pretty much explain what we do, one thing we do is we use our social medias a lot. So we have a Twitter account, Instagram, and an email. So our Twitter account we use more to kind of push out the things that our students are doing, whether it's an activity, a club, or a sport, kind of retweet what we see and tweet it out. And then Instagram we kind of use more on our podcast. So we'll kind of promote our episodes and post our poster, and we'll post about our people that we interview and give a little summary about our episodes each week. And then we use our email a lot to reach out to our students and staff. And then our interviews are kind of our biggest part of our episode. It probably takes up about 60 to 70% of each episode. So we use those to ask our students to have questions to get to know more about them. Another great thing we do with that is we get to hear a lot of advice they have for our listeners. And then we meet with a lot of our staff members. We have Mac and Eccles. We kind of talk and brainstorm with them most of the time about what we're going to do in the future. And then Dr. Bassage kind of helps us with a lot of our opportunities and things we can do to grow further and further. And then we reach out to the community members and our students a lot. So the main way we do that is through our email. We kind of send out a form each week to get some input about who they think our shout-outs should be, some amazing things that have been going on. And then with our social media, we kind of listen to their direct messages and the input we get from them too. And then on every Monday, we upload a new episode for our podcast so people can listen to it every week.
All right, so next up we have how do we maintain our brand. Our biggest thing is that we really want to emphasize inclusivity. So what we do is we want to say, hey, it's not just the football team that we're here to represent. We're here to represent the mock trial team. As people that are involved in not only sports but academic clubs, we notice that the academic clubs aren't getting the same representation that the sports are getting. So we decided, hey, let's jump on it. We can take that into our own hands. We're going to go and we're going to represent everyone. So it's the band kids, the theater kids, the kids in academic clubs. And we got to talk to a lot of them. And we got to hear a lot of great stuff that we want to push out there. Next up, we have always using a professional and positive tone. A big thing that we want to know is because we're students, it's kind of hard to look at us as respectful and responsible, mature, but we want to be taken seriously because we are very grateful to have this opportunity and we really want to keep it rolling. So using that professional and positive tone will help us get our message out there. Next, I have community outreach, and that's a really big thing for us. We don't want all of the information we get just to be coming from this group of 4 people or our close friends. We want to be getting information from adults that are parents of students that we don't really talk to, or maybe advisors, club members, teachers, just anyone that we can get information from. We're asking for information. So we're sending out that Google form each week. We're asking for people to DM our Instagram and our Twitter, and we're just trying to get as much information from as many different people as we can. And then we have send letters to, there's actually two for this. There's send letters to congratulate those who are given a shout out and send thank you letters to anyone who participated in an episode. This kind of gives off that professional attitude. We like to congratulate everyone that's gotten a shout out because a lot of times you might not know you got a shout out unless you listen to that part of the episode. So we're going to send a letter to, if Alex and Reagan were our student shout outs, I'll be sending them a letter and I'm going to say, congratulations, thank you so much, you guys are awesome, we really appreciate everything you do for the school, go give the episode a listen. So then we do the same thing for the staff member. And for anybody that was involved, mostly just our interview people, we send them a letter, we thank them for everything that they did for us, we thank them for their time, and we said we're really looking forward to see what else you accomplish at the school. And next we have only associating ourselves with positivity. This is a really big one. This is really all about our brand because the biggest thing that we're learning in our side class from our teachers is that what we do is going to represent not only us, but the group. So something that we do is we know that we have to hold ourselves to a high standard, but we also keep each other in check. We also make sure that they're holding themselves to the same standard because we want to be taken seriously. We want to be seen as that mature group. And then we have the episode layout. So we have our introduction and our overview, which is just the summary of the episode. We're going to tell the listeners what they're going to hear. Then we have our student and staff shout-outs, and this is just a little, we give a name. So if I were going to do Reagan, I'd say, Reagan, she's involved this, this, and this, and this is why we chose her. She's awesome. We are so proud of her. Congratulations, Reagan. And then we have our weekly rundown. This is what Alex is in charge of. He goes and he contacts all those advisors, and he's asking for information, and we give it down to a list. And we'll talk about everything that happened this past week that we get through social media, we find on Twitter, and from Alex. And then we have our student and our staff interviews. Reagan comes up with the questions, and we focus on what they're doing for Riverside, and we get a lot of great information from our interviews. That's, like Henry said, that's most of our episode. And then we have our wrap-up and conclusion, kind of give a summary of what they heard and thank them for listening.
All right, and then so we have faced some challenges with starting this. One of the biggest things is COVID. Originally, our first episode we pushed out at the beginning of the school year once we had decided we really wanted to do this. And after we got that first one out, we went online. So that was it was really tough just because it's harder to do this because we kind of have to be in person. And then especially with trying to bring people on to the show, we couldn't have done that because we were online and it's just not safe that way. And then another thing is online learning. So this kind of is, with the kids who are online learning, it's tough because if they get a shout out with the Google Forms, we can't really bring them in during the school day because they're at home. So that's kind of tough because it's just hard to balance both the things with having people in school and online. It's just tough with that. And then the other thing is engagement and interaction. This kind of ties back with the online learning thing. It's just trying to have everybody here and just including everybody. It's just kind of tough to like I said, balance everything out. And then lack of proper equipment and audio programs. This is just mainly the technology that we use. For example, one of the episodes we had, it got lost. The whole episode got lost on the computer just because of the technology we have. It's good and we're thankful to have it. It's just not the best. And if we could improve that, that'd be huge. And then lack of funding. This ties into the lack of proper equipment and audio programs. If we were able to get funding, which we intend to look into, we would be able to improve the equipment and the audio programs. So right now we haven't started any of that, but we tend to look into that kind of stuff.
So what our responses have been, following protocols, after being quarantined and going online, I think we all were really ready to get back and get involved again. So we take wearing our masks very seriously when filming with our episode, and we try to maintain safe social distancing with our guest on the other side of the table. We also have to do after-school interviews if we want to have anyone that is an online student. For example, Allie Sendadak is someone we have really wanted to bring on the show. She's involved in so many things, but sadly we cannot bring her on because she's not at school, so the time we usually record, that's been one of the issues, so after school is how we've been responding to that. We are starting to offer initiatives, so if you get a shout out, we want to reward those students. We really want to be able to give them a reward, kind of show those people why you're we're saying why they deserve it, but we also want to give them a gift card, something to really show our appreciation for how great they've been. We also would like to start giving some of our guests goodie bags, just things to show the people how much we appreciate them. We're continuously promoting our group. So we have QR codes. Those are hung up around the school. You can scan them to find our Twitter, our Instagram, and also it can be a link to our actual Podbean account. We also have posters. You'll see them if you walk around the school. And that say, they have little instructions on how you can listen to our episode, and it kind of gives you a rundown of what we do. And we also would like to be on the announcements and say like, hey, we released an episode today, so that would be something that would really be great publicity and something that would promote our group more. And we're really wanting to look into new affordable equipment. Having microphones would be awesome. We are currently recording on a phone. It's working and it's good. But maybe having a little bit more better equipment. And I also know we have some other ideas of things we would like to purchase, like the incentives and things that we would like to do with some funding. And then we are trying a new audio software. We use Podbean right now, and as I mentioned before, we're on a free trial and it has a certain number of hours. When those hours run out, we'll have to either buy a subscription, or we would like to also transition to Spotify. That's more mainstream and more well-known. And then looking for potential sponsors. I think that it's pretty self-explanatory, as I just mentioned all of the things we want. But looking for people that would be interested in supporting us and helping us get some of these things.
So with some of these challenges we face, we also have had quite a lot of successes. So we got almost right away, we got a pretty good response from our students and staff. We got a lot of feedback from the staff members emailing us back or just letting us know how great of a thing this is. And our students are excited to listen to this and hear that their friends are getting recognized, a club they're in, a sport they're in, or even they're getting recognized. I think it's great to hear from the students and the staff about what they think about us, and it's been really positive so far. And then I think we don't want to bore people out with like a 30-minute, hour-long episode, so I think we're really able to condense all our information into a pretty good time span. So our episodes so far have been about 12 to 15 minutes. And for example, our weekly rundown is everything that's happened in the whole week, and that part of our show is probably about maybe 3 minutes most. So we can fit a lot of information in just a small amount of time, so we can still get the attention of our listeners. And then I think we've built a lot of connections and relationships with a lot of people. Like Dr. Bassage, none of us have had him as a teacher yet because he's not a teacher anymore. So now I think we've worked with him a lot, and I think we built a great relationship with him. He's been able to help us out a lot. And then there's a lot of students who we not necessarily have been able to talk to or been in a club with. So I think we get to learn a lot of personal information and some great accomplishments from a lot of our students. And then recently we've been focusing a lot about what we're going to do in the future, and we've kind of put together a routine about what we're going to do. So after we got quarantined back in October, November time, we had to take a break until we just got back into school. And since then, we've been posting weekly since then, and we have a routine about what we're going to do each week. So through that, we are a little more stable now, and I think that's a great thing. And then for our future, this past week, I think we've been doing quite a lot of planning about what we're going to do in the future. Because we're all going to be seniors next year, we're going to need someone to take over because we want this thing to keep going on forever. We're even going to try to expand a little bit, and then with our sponsors, we're looking a lot into that and a little bit of funding. So it's been a lot of planning recently.
All right, so we have what have we learned? These are our biggest takeaways. Our first one is definitely you have to make the best out of the poor circumstances because, as you guys all know, we didn't really get the best year to try and start something new. So we figured this out at the beginning of the year, very beginning of the year. We said, we want to try this. And it wasn't really going great. We had a lot of issues with quarantining, with not being able to really connect with a lot of people, getting to see a lot of people. And we decided, you know what, we're going to go ahead with it anyway. We're not going to let this define us. And we went, and we are really glad that we did because we are enjoying it so much. We got to go and do so much. We're here. We're in front of you guys. We got to really continue this project. So it's about making the best of your circumstances. Next, we have establishing relationships and making connections. Like we keep bringing up, making this connection with Dr. Bassage really was a big thing for us. Not only did we get to present for you guys today, but we got to present for the Business Advisory Council a couple of weeks ago. And that was really great because we made connections there that we wouldn't have made without that. So it just keeps branching off, and that's something that we're really glad that we got to do. Next, we have how to successfully promote our group. We learned a lot about branding ourselves, how to promote ourselves. It's about the things that we like said earlier, the QR codes, the posters, talking to our friends. And it's been a little difficult because none of us have ever really had to create a group and get it out there on our own. And that was something that we got to learn a lot about this year. And lastly, tying it back to our side class that we started this in, we learned a lot about how to successfully build our brand. And that's a big thing for us. It's about looking at us and taking us seriously and making sure that we're giving you guys that opportunity to take us seriously. So, and then we have our QR codes up here, so if any of you would like to scan the QR codes, I don't know if you can actually get it from back there, but this is an example of our QR codes. And so we have all 3 of them up there. Those are things that we want to post around the school, and we're going to start doing that. And then we have all of our accounts up here, which all of them, if you wanted to look them up on Twitter, Instagram, or Podbean, they're all just recognizing RHS. And our Gmail is through this, oh, that's actually wrong. That's not our Gmail. Our Gmail is recognizingRHS@riversideschools.net, not gmail.com, but so there you go. And if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, let us know. We're happy to be here, so, yeah.
That's great, nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did. That's funny.
So how many listeners do you guys have usually?
So for our first 4 episodes, I think we're averaging about 250 downloads per episode, so it was
Awesome.
pretty good to start off with. I think it's gone up slightly since then. I haven't looked at the average, but we've been growing slightly each episode.
That's
been
fabulous. What's your plan for Spotify?
Well, Henry really does a lot of the technology stuff, but I know Podbean is like a separate app, and I think Spotify is more like mainstream and something a lot more people have, so I think that's why we want to transition to that.
I think what we're going to try and do is maybe be able to do both the platforms, because I know Spotify is kind of like the mainstream, like the big brand. Then Podbean I think is great because you don't need an account to listen to, so it's kind of more universal. And like she said, it's on iOS, Android, and web browsers. So what we do is we have that link. If you click it, it just brings you to the website and the episode starts playing. It also plays in the background of a phone app, so I think it's really just being able to use on any device, so it helps with that, because not everyone just says the same thing. In Spotify, you'll need an account. I think we're going to try and do both maybe and balance it. And with our free trial, I was looking at it. What we were looking at is the subscription was like a $9 a month, so it wasn't anything terrible. So I think they gave us like 5 hours of free streaming, and we've used an hour and a half of that so far. So we'll probably be able to finish the school year out, but then after that, we're going to probably look into expanding our platform a little more.
Awesome.
Cool. So is there going to be a podcast next year as well?
Yeah, we plan on continuing this, and we hope that it's something that continues even after we're gone.
So you're all juniors this year?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can do this at work too?
Almost, if only Reagan worked with us, but yeah.
She can come in and buy something.
I come a lot, I'm just really my friend.
I expect you guys to get her a job.
Yeah, we're trying.
I feel there's a work shortage tonight. Can I get a picture of you guys together?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like I should photo.
I really
We're gonna have
wish-
everybody in the room take a picture of you.
Awesome job.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you.
We got talent in this school.
We do.
So real quick at this point, the leadership of teachers here, Jamie McIntyre and John Eccles are here. They wanted to share a couple kind words about these guys too, because they've been working with them as well.
I guess I'll go first. So they are our first-year students in SIDE. SIDE is a 2-year opportunity or a 2-year program. And in the first year, it's the focuses of the course is entrepreneurship and leadership. So what was really tremendous about what these guys have accomplished is that's a number of things, but the first semester, they're supposed to be working on a theoretical project, a theoretical entrepreneur project where they're designing something or they're proposing a design of something, but they don't actually have to do it. They're learning the process, they're learning the discovery, the problem solving, they're learning how to network, how to contact, all that good stuff. And so, like the rest of the class, they went forward and they did their project. The second semester, you actually take something, you actually design it, you actually build it, or you do a service-based project. Well, these guys came to me, I don't know, middle of October, I think it was, somewhere around there, and they came to me and said, we want to do this. Does it have to be theoretical? And I said, you guys want to do this? And they're like, yeah. And keep in mind, we've got football players here, we've got cross-country runners here, we've got cheerleaders, all 4 on my mock trial team. And they're like, we want to do this. I was like, okay. They went to Mac, and Mac said, okay, let's do it. And they've done it extremely well. So they took it from being theoretical to something that they're actually doing. And so, needless to say, we're incredibly proud of them. And and where they're going with it. Special thanks to Dr. Bassich and Rich Schmidt, who's not here tonight. They have been very helpful in the course of the program, helping us with those aspects. So, Mr. Backtire?
The second year of the program, if you stick around, which I think you guys might,
Oh, you will. I've already signed your schedule. You're in.
is service and leadership. And the concept of what they're doing is exactly what the second year students already are doing. They're running independent service projects. We've had quite a few of them do Project Hope projects. We have a group of girls working with Broadmoor to actually provide things for their preschool. We have groups working with nursing homes. So really continuing what they're doing is a service to our community and to our district. So much so that through a small conversation, brainstorming, they are going to expand. They are going to create an umbrella company, basically, out of their Recognizing RHS. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, have some conversations with us all about how they can bring in other aspects and additional podcasts to this group. So it's not just one, but literally they've started an entire thing for Riverside. This is all done. You could tear away us, Dr. B. Schmidt, it still would have happened. We could literally walk away from them, and I think that's what's great about especially this style of class is it isn't about us, it's about what they want to do, and we follow and support along the way. So you guys have some gems here.
Very good.
I've
been to a lot of these meetings and not a lot of free-time class.
Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Dr. Taylor, do you have anything else for special report?
I just, I know mine is the same thing, and they make this job just great for us. And,
Yeah.
Every street, we have a lot more kids like that around.
Right.
And, same with Mr. Eccles and Mrs. McIntyre, always provide an opportunity for our kids, and that makes everything happen,
Yeah,
no matter what it is.
that's good stuff.
That concludes our report.
All right, that takes us into old business, if anyone's got anything. How about new business? Okay, that takes us to the Board of Education Committee and Liaison Report. The first thing is the Board of Education, or the Superintendent's Business Advisory. It was just last week that we met, right? Right, it was just last week.
Before.
Either, whatever, recently. I forgot my notes with me, but one of the big things we did have there and was this awesome group that was here today. After that, we had talked about having Dr. Bassich invite them to the meeting, so I'm excited that they presented the business advisory and that so many other people outside of Riverside got to hear what kind of really great things they were doing, so.
It was the 11th, Thursday the 11th.
Okay. 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
It felt sooner, but whatever. But it was really great to get to hear some of the different people in our community from different businesses. I got to hear these great things that the kids were doing. I don't remember what else we talked about in there, honestly. That was really impressive though, so. So then next is curriculum and programming and boosters, Mr. Miley.
Okay, boosters, we haven't had a meeting yet, but there's one scheduled for March 3rd, I believe it is. 2nd or 3rd, but it's coming up. And then curriculum meeting, we focused on special ed, education updates, and we talked about the coordinator for work and career position and how that's progressing, and I think it's going to be something kind of cool that we're going to be taking advantage of starting next year, right? Yep. Okay. And then we talked about the preschool program and looking at some of the requirements that's going to have to deal with. And then we talked about special ed staffing and how we do in person and remote. And then there's also a consultant right now that's working on caseload ratios and looking at the effectiveness of balancing the teachers' workloads based on students. And then we talked about a behavior coach position and dealing with executive functioning and ADHD and OT and PT and all the parts to help students out, and that was our meeting. Tom, anything to add?
I'm not sure if I just missed it. We also talked about the work and career coordinator. Did you mention that?
Yeah, at the beginning, yeah.
Okay, then I have nothing to add because you covered it all. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so takes us to finance and audit, personnel, legislative, Mrs. Grassi.
That's a mouthful there.
It is.
So we, Finance Committee had a meeting on the 18th of February, that was last Thursday. We had invited Dan to come to our meeting so that we can have a conversation about workers' compensation and who we cover as a district and who we don't. I think the plan for that going forward was to take a review of who we have as independent service providers within our district, and make a determination on a priority status of what our level of exposure is, just to make sure that those individuals are covered. Plus, and also to look at some of our outside service contracts that we have with other organizations where we're bringing individuals into the district and who those folks are covered under. Again, just from a liability perspective, I think that's why the conversation was broached in the first place. And so Dan's going to work with Gary to get that list together, and then we'll probably visit that at our next meeting. The second thing we talked about is our ESSER2 funds. We talked about that at length, and about making some transfers to our lunch fund from those funds, in addition to, let's talk about the transfer to the lunch funds first. As a committee, we asked for some data to be provided before we bring those transfers to the board for approval, simply because we just wanted to know what the underlying issues are underneath the lunch fund loss of dollars. So you guys will bring some data to the table. I'm sure Michelle Gifford has some information that she can provide for us, if we're serving other districts, that, so that we can find out what our sustainability is and what those issues are. So that was part of our conversation. And the last one was our ESSER funds. So we have $1.6 million that we'll be receiving from those COVID relief federal funds. And, there was some conversation about what we should do with those, and there was some heated conversation during the meeting, and there's some additional information that we're proposing that is brought to the table before we can kind of take that out of committee and make some recommendations to the board. So we'll just have another meeting scheduled. When is our next meeting?
Moved it to March 15th at 8
That's right, Monday morning, March 15th at 8 a.m. So we'll be talking about that at that time. The funds don't have to be spent until September of 2023. And I think the conversation was focused around the fact that, while it may be prudent to spend those dollars now and supplant dollars out of the general fund, the other side of the coin was perhaps we talk about, with the strategic plan moving forward a little bit now, and some of the other conversations that we need to have around facility, that maybe it would be prudent then, on the other hand, to wait to determine what those outcomes of those conversations are going to be. So there's both sides of the coin, so we want to have some more discussion within that committee to determine before we bring a recommendation to the board. So I think, did I cover that very well? Okay. So if anybody wants any information, I had made copies of what we're able to spend the ESSER funds are. I don't know if anybody wants this, but if you do, I have it. Gary can provide it as well. So
I brought copies too. So.
Okay, right. So we're on the same page. So I think that was it. And legislatively, I don't know. There's a lot of things going on right now. Mostly, with the biennium budget coming out into play right now, it's just going to be interesting to see what iterations school finance has to play in that by the time they finally approve that, most likely right up at the end of June.
Right, because the governor's proposal came out, which is basically the same proposal from 2 years ago, but it increased the student wellness funds. The House came out with the Fair School Funding Plan again, that was approved by the House in December that never made anywhere in the Senate, so that's gonna be the House's plan, which is House Bill 1 now, was the first bill. And now they're waiting on the Senate proposal, and then they go from there. And, you know, the governor purposely did not propose anything, knowing that there was already a major work in progress, and just be curious to see what the Senate proposes and how it finally works out, which will be in June, if not July, if things get delayed.
So it'll be interesting. And again, I actually want to, like, as part of the committee process, I just want to say that I think the committee process works really, really well. I'm glad that we have the opportunity at the committee level to discuss and digest these kinds of things. Sometimes bringing all of that data to the full board, you know, we get to digest it first and make a few decisions that then we can bring to the board for a broader discussion, and I think that's valuable. Again, even if there's disagreement at that table, sometimes that I still think it's valuable back and forth, so. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. It takes us to buildings and grounds, operations, and alumni. Mr. Hack.
Okay. There was no meeting with the Alumni Association, so we'll just go into buildings and grounds. And so we discussed a number of things, but probably the highlight, what I'll cover first, is we had Chris Easley from ICON. You will recall him as the program manager for the building of the new elementary schools. And really the conversation with him focused on the remaining punch list items that were identified last year, in fact. And there aren't a ton, but there are a few things that need to be done. The kilns still have not been installed, for example. And this is, I guess, really, these are items from what they call the 11th month walkthrough. So that was, I guess, in 2020. And so some backstops need to be installed at Riverview for the baseball field. There's concrete that needs to be dealt with. And one of the things that was unfortunate, we didn't have so many leaks last year, but this year we have had, I think, more severe weather. And so there were some leaks in the new building. So we are working through the process of figuring out how to make those fixes permanent. And there's some dialogue with Indiana, Ohio, and Ohio Roofing, which we need to figure out. You know, we have a report that was done, and we need to go through that, a warranty report, and just figure out how to get those buildings sealed up so that we don't have continuing problems going into the future.
What is the delay on things like the kiln and the backstop that were supposed to be done
Yeah,
a
so
few months ago?
So part of it is that, I mean, they to be honest with you, they haven't been ordered yet. And they're gonna install them at the end of the year, and
Why? I mean, like, that's-
Right.
yeah.
what's their answer been?
Yeah. So I'm not sure that they have given a definitive answer on why that is still outstanding.
Were we charged for it? And
There's
we
an
paid for
allowance
it?
in the contract, but we haven't made any payment towards that allowance, so it's still outstanding. I think one of the issues too was there was no exhaust then, I think,
Exhaust
for
and
the
electric.
so that needed you to put in.
Because they didn't put it in?
Yeah, and it was, the architect didn't put it in the drawings, and so it was never installed. And then it's like, well, there's a spot for a kiln, but how do you exhaust it and plug it in? So that was one of the holdup, and then you had the COVID issue when we shut down and, you know, everything else going on. So it was one of those things that they're planning on once the school year ends, when they can get in there and not worry about social distancing and, you know, disrupting classrooms.
In essence, they have a spot for the kiln and they have a hole cut in the roof.
And then like
That's how far we are with it.
and then the backstop stuff, obviously, that's heavy with weather permitting, so it's probably all be wrapped up in June and July to wrap things up, and the concrete as well. They're gonna check pricing on the fixes, and then they're gonna do that once the school lets out and not disrupt.
Backstop's only for Riverview because
Right.
that park side was taken out with the settlement agreement.
Mhm.
Right. And the other thing that still needs to be done is we're discussing putting fencing around the basins, the retention basins, so that hopefully will be taken care of. And the problem there is we obviously want a decent fence. We don't want just chain link because that would ruin the aesthetics of the schools. So we're still trying to figure out how to do something nice for a reasonable price. But as Gary indicated, we are looking to get things wrapped up by the June timeframe, and the next time Mr. Easley comes back, he'll just be a visitor, so instead of representing ICON.
All righty.
And just a couple other things. It has been a tough winter, and there are some boiler issues at some of the schools. The field house had an issue, and I think we also had some issues over at Melridge as well. So, Rich has been very busy in keeping up with the various things that have gone wrong. There have been some leaks elsewhere as well that have been taken care of. And so there's a hot water issue at Buckeye. So it's been a busy time. It's a lot of the work has been done so that it has impacted the classroom the least, but people have been working very hard behind the scenes. And Rich, is there anything else you would add to what's going on in as far as the buildings go?
We're just sanitizing. We're prepping up for spring. We have ordered topping for the ball fields. So mid-March, we should be getting 20 tons of topping to get those up and running and ready to go for the season. The staff has been working diligently with, cleaning the best that they can. We've been short with some quarantines. We've been hit lately with a rash of them, and I'd say a rash, it's been 4. Several of them have had COVID, several of them have had live-in parents who had the COVID, so they had to stay home because of exposure. So the staff has been pulling a lot of extra duties, but they've been doing a tremendous job, and I'm very proud for what they've been doing. And we'll keep rolling. Every challenge we hit, we get it done as quick as possible. With there's very little impact on the daily operations for the administration and the teachers as well.
Yeah. And so I think that's the key takeaway is there are things going wrong, but we have a staff that is keeping the impacts to what we do as an educational institution minimized. Mr. Riley, do you have anything else to add?
No, you did great.
All right, that's the end of my report.
Excellent. That takes us to policy and strategic plan. Mrs. Krasinski.
So policy, we have not had a meeting. Do we know when the next?
March 22nd, we'll be meeting with Mr. Holland to go over the policy reviews, and then you will receive a summary, and then we'll set a date.
Okay. And for our strategic plan, we did start talking about our next steps to update our strategic plan on March 17th, I think it was. And the next steps are some questions the board needs to answer, and then another working session to discuss.
Okay. Thank you very much. That takes us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Kalis.
Thank you. In accordance with board policy 5517.01, bullying and other forms of aggressive behavior, in Ohio Revised Code 3313.666, we are required to provide the president of the board with a written summary of all reported incidents and post such summary on our district website at least semi-annually for any bullying instances in our schools. So I'm going to do that now.
Thank you.
They're already posted on the web.
Thanks.
As the board knows, we had our clinic today. We were talking with the Department of Health and also the ESC of the Western Reserve, and we were trying to, about, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks ago, having a Zoom meeting and trying to figure out how we were going to dispense of the vaccines. And they were pretty much beating around the bush trying to get one of the larger schools to host the site. Not too many other districts really wanted to do it because it was a big undertaking. And after talking about it with Chuck, we decided that we were the biggest school on the call, and we felt obligated that we were the ones to hold the site. So what you see up right now is the COVID numbers. The COVID numbers have decreased the last few weeks. What I have is the numbers are up here, but the last time we talked about COVID, it was a 5-week span, because at our board meetings our board meeting was December 15th to January 27th, which is about 6 weeks, with a total of 61 total cases. And this, what you see up here now, represents the time between January 28th of our last board meeting and today, which is about 4 weeks, which is a total of 38 cases. The COVID numbers in our district are trending down, so that's a good thing. And we're hoping that continues now that we have the majority of our staff, getting shots today. And up here on this screen, we have the hosts. We're the host of the vaccination site. Like I said, we had not only our own district, but we had Madison, Fairport, Painesville City, the ESC of the Western Reserve, Summit Academy, Andrew Osborne Academy, Huntington Learning Centers, and our Shepherd Lutheran School. And this represents about 1,100 vaccinations that were given today. We were a little concerned about the number of vaccinations and the time period to do it in, but to be perfectly honest with you, it was very smooth. It was very well orchestrated and well organized. And although I was in part of a lot of the meetings and discussing some of the things we had to do and what some of our responsibilities, the majority of that grunt work fell on the shoulders of Chuck Schlick. And Chuck knocked it out of the park. I'm telling you, today I heard a lot of positive things about it. Got signs up, you'll see some of the pictures. People knew where they were going. It was well orchestrated. So, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to refer to Chuck as the captain of COVID, the viceroy of vaccines, the shepherd of shots, and the Nona of Corona.
Dr. Kalis, if I could just take a moment.
He had too much time to think.
Well, yeah. To thank, the Lake County General Health District and their, of course, staff, and of course the Willoughby East Lake nursing staff, the Western Reserve, ESC, our nutrition service, custodial maintenance, digital imaging for all this, and of course our administrative staff. I mean, it was a lot of work organizing, but without those individuals, it would have been not what it was today. So I think all of
get
them.
some calls, a couple of calls in the office too about having the next couple of days off. I want people to understand that we try to get Friday. I mean, we're not the only school in Lake County. So we were given Thursday, which is better than Wednesday, not as good as having it on Friday. But we do have our teachers posting assignments there, reaching out to the kids. And Friday is going to be a makeup day as well. What I want people to understand is it's very important to have these employees get shots, not only for their own health and protection, but it will help us in the long run so we don't have issues of operations, right? If we didn't take Friday off and I had a few people get sick, we're hurting. We don't have a lot of subs, and I don't want to get in that position. So that is one of the reasons why. I think if you look at the bigger picture, it's better to get the vaccinations now so down the line we can operate. People aren't impacted by COVID like we have in the last months. Leads me to my next item is second round of shots is going to be March 19th, which is a Friday. So the kids will not be in on that day either, but we are still determining what that day looks like. Second shots are usually more severe. However, from what I'm hearing out there, Moderna's second shots have more of an adverse effect than Pfizer, and that's what we have is Pfizer here. Just a couple pictures. That's inside the gym where they were getting their shots. After you receive a shot, all patients, so to speak, were to go into the auditorium for 15 minutes to make sure there wasn't a reaction, and then they were allowed to leave. If you had any type of reaction to it, you had to stay for at least 30 minutes. I got my shot a little bit earlier because everything was so well organized I didn't have to wait. This is a picture that
miracles.
That's right before I got my shot. We also had the opportunity to train in the Sandy Hook Promise. Yeah, so I'm trying to give a little bit of background on this. You know, we do a lot to try to protect our kids. And with everything that's going on in this world, we made it a point in the last few years to go to a lot of professional development, trying to figure things out, and how to do things in such a large district that we have, and trying to protect our kids. You know, we've talked about it even when we're building the new elementary schools too, with different features to protect our kids. It's a lot easier when you can start from scratch than to try to figure things out with just, you know, old ways of doing things in old buildings and everything else. And what I've noticed with a lot of the professional development that I've gone to is they always start after an event happened. And it used to frustrate me, and I would sit there and listen to this. Then go into another one, it would be the same thing over again, until finally I spoke up and I said, what can we do before an event occurs? You know, how can we mitigate some of these threats and these issues? And Sandy Hook is one of those programs that concentrates on threats and how to deal with them before things happen. And basically what it is, it's getting together a team of administrators, teachers, healthcare providers, SROs, that when a threat occurs, trying to assess what kind of threat it is. Is it transient, is it substantive, is it really, really bad threat? It's getting more sets of eyes on it and looking at it in a more logical manner. And then, depending on what level it is, trying to decide how to proceed. And it's a really good program, and unfortunately it was born out of what happened in 2012 in Sandy Hook. But it's a threat assessment identification, assessing the severity and response to the threat. And it was probably, I would say, in my estimation, this is my opinion, the best that I've seen so far. And I wanted the board to know that we do have some people that have committed to it in our district, and we're going to expand on it. Okay. I'm going to tag team here with Melissa. We may be offering another math course created by the ODE this year, or next year. We applied to be accepted into the pilot, so it wasn't a mandatory thing, but since the ODE created it, we applied, we were accepted. And the course is designed to promote the reasoning and problem solving. You can see all the things that it's supposed to do there. There is a prerequisite to the courses, to this course, and it includes Algebra 1 and Geometry. And again, that requirement is coming also from the ODE. It's considered an Algebra 2 equivalent course, but you can take Algebra 2 and this course. They're not as equivalent where you can only take one and only get credit for one. Right now, it might have one teacher teaching the class, or possibly two, depending on the interest. And these are existing staff. It's not, we're not going to hire new staff. And the number of sections are also to be determined.
So I'll just jump in real quick and say the reason this didn't come to the curriculum committee is because we just got word of this past, today's Thursday, Tuesday. I think we found out we made it into the pilot. Otherwise, we would have had this conversation through the curriculum committee. It's I think, a very exciting opportunity because it will allow us to change that third or possibly fourth year of math, and that's kind of what they're gearing the class towards, is kids who are not going into career fields that require a high level of math. For example, even as somebody who went to college and went into education, I never needed to take calculus. You know, so although, and I didn't have to take a fourth year of math, so I just didn't take a math my senior year. But kids now need 4 years of math, and so we need to look at other options. Whether you're going a career pathway and you know that, or your career pathway will take you to college, this class is going to kind of sit for both those groups of kids. So it was an application process. Jeff Franz agreed to be the lead teacher, but we're looking to see if there's somebody else that will do it so we could have the two of them collaborating. Because it's always better, if you know what I mean, if you have two people doing something together. So I just wanted to let you know that class will be out there. We have not put it out to students yet, because again, we don't really know what it's going to look like, but I think it's a really exciting opportunity and a need that we have seen at a higher level math, you know, in that higher level math area. So,
When you say it's a state initiative, did they write the curriculum?
they did. They had teachers and, you know, they had a whole committee that put it together. So this is the second, next year will be the second year of the pilot. I know around here, Kenston got accepted. I think there's one other school in our area, maybe Beechwood are the two other schools in our area, but we had to commit to professional, like Jeff has to go to 3 days of professional development over the summer, and an administrator has to go with him one of those 3 days, and then there's certain meetings. So they're being very focused on how teachers are implementing this and making sure that they are really, that it's being done well. They're not just throwing it out there and saying, figure it out. So I'm very excited.
So I got a little confused when you talked about the potential target audience, target students for the class. Initially, in looking at here, it sounded like you were saying that it's for students who are not necessarily going to college, but still need a more substantial math background than they're currently getting. But you also talked in the same context, it sounded like, that college-bound students would be in the same class. So how is that going to be matched up? Because it sounds like you're targeting, it sounds like they're divergent target audiences.
They could be, but not necessarily for their need, for their math level. So right now, everybody has to take Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. This class can sit in place of Algebra 2, so it might be, as a college-bound student, I take this class and then I take Algebra 2. It could be, as a student who's not college-bound, that I take this class and then I take an advanced math concepts. So it could go, you can go either way. This just sits in our course offerings or in that flow just a little bit differently. And it's a more hands-on, non-math based career. So this would not be for a student who wants to be an engineer, maybe not even one for somebody that really wants to go into a higher level of the trades where you need a little bit more intense math. But you know what I mean? Again, as somebody who went into education and was still going to college, this probably would have been a course that I would have looked at as a math class.
So, again, sorry to belabor, but it sounds like we are, so the curriculum as it exists today is going to continue to exist, and this is filling a niche, or is this eventually, if this pilot is successful, what happens to our curriculum after that?
So we won't ever take away the Algebra 2 because kids who need that will need an Algebra 2, and it could also be their 4th year. We're looking at some other courses that we may not be offering. This may be offered in place of them. So this may be taking the place of some of the math courses that we have, and that's the discussion that we're in right now.
And what classes do you think would this substitute for?
Right now, we are looking at discrete math that we offer. We're also looking at the advanced math concepts. So what we have to do is look at what are they offering in this quantitative reasoning and where does it kind of match up with what we're doing, and see how that plays out. So we've started conversations with Kieran, our math coach, and with Katie, the department head, about what that might look like.
What kind of stuff do they do in that class? I'm just curious, like, what does that curriculum look like?
It is, to be honest with you, I haven't dove into it enough, Belinda, to tell you, but I will tell you it's a lot more hands-on and a lot more real-world math application that they're looking at than more of that kind of book math learning. So it's a really interesting concept, and it piqued the interest of the math department. So
I guess it's hands-on, but I mean, a student that walks out of a classroom today, I guess I'm still, maybe we, how about this? Can we talk about this at the next curriculum meeting, and then I can dive in without taking up everybody else's time? That'd be terrific. Thank you.
It's done.
Yay!
Except for the grading around the stands. If you look at the right part of the photo, if you had measured in 12 feet, that is what was added on to the end of the.
Excellent.
Yeah, it really looks nice. It really does. We can't obviously do the grading because of the weather, but everything else, I was out there a few days ago, and it looks great, it really does. I really appreciate the board supporting this, and I know the band program is very excited about it as well.
Awesome.
A couple other things too that aren't actually up on the screen. The board and school administrators should have received an email from me, and I actually forwarded from Katie Coswell and Lisa Riegel. So if you haven't checked your email, please do so. It's a survey is attached to it, and I would like all of you to take part in the survey. The results of the survey will help our facilitators gauge areas of interest as it relates to our strategic plan. So if you can check that, that would be great. The other item I wanted the board to know is I want to keep the HR posting up a little longer than what I originally said to the board. I want to get more resumes and more interest. So long as the board's okay with that, we're going to keep it up a little longer.
Have you put that in any of the papers, like the Plain Dealer or anything?
All the places we posted it included, we now have it on,
Ohio job,
and also,
Beach job, or Ohio Beach job, yeah, we just posted that the other day.
And I noticed, the reason I brought it up is like on Sunday business section, employment section, you know, there's a lot of schools, a lot of government agencies, a lot of city councils and things that are putting their job postings out, like Mentor's schools use it a lot. And just to kind of widen the...
What's it called?
It's the employment section of the Sunday Plain Dealer.
Plain Dealer or News Herald?
Plain Dealer. And it's, I mean, there's a lot of good jobs and a lot of big businesses and, you know, police stuff, schools.
I'll reach out to Kathy Burnett, probably not till Monday, just because their clinic is tomorrow.
Well,
It's on Indeed, so.
Without going too much detail about the reason why I want to post this, we're getting a lot of interest from people who are building level administrators right now, either assistant principals or principals, who have really not had a lot of experience in HR. And I know that was very important to all of us, was that they have to have some experience in HR. We put on the posting 5 years. So that's, as long as the board's okay, I'm going to keep it up a little longer and see what we can do. Also, I want the board to know that along with several other superintendents in Lake County, I was invited to participate in a Q&A Zoom presentation hosted by the Eastern Lake County Chamber of Commerce on March 12th. It's going to be a little interesting program for about an hour and a half. We're going to highlight some of the things from each of our districts, interesting things that are going on. Originally, there was some talk about doing COVID, but we're all COVIDed out. I mean, we knocked that one out of there. We didn't want to talk about COVID anymore. I'm sick of talking about COVID. But we're going to be talking about some of the more positive things in our district. So again, it'll be on March 12th, and we're very excited about participating in it.
Great.
And that completes my report.
All right, Black Dog Treasurer report.
All right, I have several updates for the board this evening. A few quick bullet points. During February, we transferred $5 million over to a U.S. bank account that's being managed by Red Tree Investments. They're the ones that manage our bond funds, trying to get more interest on our current cash balances. Just to kind of give a perspective, in Star, Ohio, which is where the majority of our cash is right now, we're getting 0.09%. And 1 year ago today, we were getting 1.76. So interest rates have gone down. So we re-engage with Red Tree to try to up that somewhat. It will never be anywhere near 1.76 that maybe a few years from now. We also received our first property tax advance from the auditor's office. 11.3 million we received on the 17th, of which 10 million was for general fund, 800 for the PI, 800,000 for the PI fund, 500,000 for the debt retirement fund. Some discussions with Mr. Galloway. As a county as a whole, property tax collections are about 10 million lower than they expected at this point. But they're also factoring in that the bills went out late this year, and with the mail delays, they said that typically they would cut off collection the day after the due date, which I think was February 17th or so. But they're leaving it open, waiting, they keep getting stuff daily. They mentioned they got a huge payment from First Energy because of the power plants in Perry and the former power plant in Eastlake, so they're still waiting on, things to come in. So they're gonna leave it open a bit longer before they start their final settlement process. I did inquire if there was any trend as far as, residential, is it commercial, and that, but they hadn't dived into that detail yet, so they weren't really sure. They're just kind of waiting to see what else comes in the next week or two. We also received, an advance from ESC, the Western Reserve, because of the Lake County School Financing District. If you remember, we had the renewal back in March of 2020, and the new funding allocation that went into effect with this settlement. So we're seeing an increase from that all the work we did to renegotiate that. In addition, our audited financials were released. They're on the Auditor State website. I'm waiting to hear if we received an Auditor State award or not. It looks like they typically do those now. They announce them the first of the following month, so I imagine on March 1st I'll know for sure. But back in 2019, the Auditor's Office released a audit bulletin about a new STARS rating for open and transparent government. So basically, they've always audited us every year to make sure that we're responding to public record requests timely and following open meetings acts and putting out proper notices. But they started a new rating system where if you implement certain best practices, you can earn a star for each one you do. So you get 1 star if you just meet the basic sunshine laws. You can get up to 4 stars if you implement 5 or more best practices. And they list 7 best practices on this audit bulletin. And just to give you some examples, that we have like a public records request tracking log, which we implemented for that. Also having standard request forms if people want to use a request form. Typically we get them by email, but there's a request form on our website that they can fill out if they want to do that as well. Also, other best practice to acknowledge when you receive a request, that just acknowledge you received it and that you're working on it. Another thing is, publicizing who the office and who the person in the office that's responsible for public records. That's on our website, the treasurer, the records custodian. Also, whether the board or someone designated, which I'm the designated of the board, they attend public records training. They also, if I attend in the first year of someone's term, they look at that as a positive best practice. Also having an online presence with, board meeting agendas, policies, and all that stuff is on our website through board docs. And then the 7th one is providing information on, publicly out there, such as annual budget, annual financial statements, audit reports, contact information. That's all either on our website or in board docs and our agenda. So, then it tells exactly how many of the best practices we have, but we got the highest 4-star rating. So we have the award here. Yay. Then we got the 4 stars for that. It's funny because they didn't even really tell me we got the award. There's an online e-services account, we get our invoices, and I found it in there, and it's like, oh, it would have been nice to at least, no one ever told me, did we need them all, how many did you get, and just, here's the award in your account. It's like, oh, okay. And I saw some, neighboring, like Pinkle City had it, and Eastwood had one, and a few other districts in the area, that have been audited. Hopefully we find out on March 1st if we got the regular Auditor State award that we typically get each year. We didn't have any management letter comments or question cost or any issues, so I don't see why we wouldn't get it, but it's really up to them. Also, we talked a little bit more about ESSER funding. We had the first round of ESSER funds; those had all been spent so far. We used it for remote teacher salaries for the first semester. And then there's a non-public obligation, which I think is about $1,500 that we're still working on that little nuance. So those ESSER 1 funds were spent, and we already received our cash request from the state, so that was $434,000 for ESSER 1. As Mrs. Grassi mentioned, ESSER 2, we're still working on deciding how we're going to spend those funds going forward. And Mrs. Grassi sent several questions yesterday evening, and I'm going to kind of go through some information on that. On finance item B, there's approval of the permanent appropriations revision. So we're putting in, there was revisions for, we awarded IDA restoration fund, or special ed funds. There's a $200,000 bus grant that we were awarded, so we needed to put an authorization there to spend there. There's also an Attorney General safety grant that we needed to approve for. And I also put in a $750,000 appropriation for ESSER 2. So basically what happened was when ESSER 1 ended, I had to move those salaries in our accounting system somewhere. And knowing that ESSER 2 was coming, I put them on ESSER 2 before we kind of had some disagreement how we're going to spend those funds. So I could either do all the accounting adjustments to clean it up, or approve the appropriation, make sure we're compliant with budgetary laws. So that's something why I have it on the agenda, to approve that appropriation so our books are still compliant as we work through how we're going to spend those funds. And if we decide we're going to move forward with the way I have it now, then we can leave it as is. If we decide not to, then I just have to do one adjustment at one time instead of trying to clean it up with that already started. I won't request any cash from the state. We'll just kind of be, right now it's in accounting in limbo. We had to have the appropriation there to keep it budgetary law compliant. The next question was about Chromebooks over the last few years. So I put together a little spreadsheet because it seems like every time we turn around we're buying Chromebooks, and it makes sense to kind of review that. So I'm going to pass out a little handout here. So this is Chromebook history over the past 2 years, and our recent purchases that we board approved. So back in March of 2019, we approved the purchase of 1,200 Chromebooks from CDWG at a unit price of $185. Then in November of 2019, we approved a small purchase of 120. I think those were for a specific purpose, but I don't recall what that was for. In May of 2020, we purchased 750 through a partnership with Kirtland through CDW again. Those ones were delayed because of COVID. They came in later at the beginning of the school year, a little bit into the school year. And then we purchased additional 500 that became available through Easy Graphics Corp back in November because we were still running short with the number of Chromebooks we had. We didn't have enough extras for replacements and repairs. So that's, in the last 2 years we've purchased 2,570 Chromebooks. It sounds like a lot, but we're basically one-to-one now across the district. So there's 4,200 students in the district, just for reference. And then recently, between the special meeting last week and on tonight's agenda is an additional purchase of 1,000 Chromebooks. That's to continue to do the Chromebook replacements, because every Chromebook has a expiration date where they are no longer updated. So everyone has an end date, whether it's 2025, 2028. So once you hit that end date, you can still use the Chromebook, but you can't use it for testing, and there's other limitations. They're no longer updated, they don't get security updates and things like that. The recent purchases are more for next school year. The reason we kind of pulled the trigger now is basically there's availability issues. I mean, things have gotten much better than what they were previously, but also every Chromebook we purchase, you have to purchase a Google management license with it, and it's typically $24. That price is increasing on March 9th to $31.50. So that's $7.50 a unit. So we decided let's just get them purchased now instead of waiting till that license go up after March 9th. All of our large Chromebook purchases, they come out of the permanent improvement fund, so they don't come out of general fund. But we do have a budget that we set aside, and actually it's a kind of an aggressive budget, about $300,000 a year is when I set aside in the PI forecast, knowing that we're probably going to be less than that, but that's kind of what we anticipate going forward. But some years we buy for more classes than others, and now that we have a new tech department, we're going to put together a solid Chromebook replacement schedule, because under our previous firm, I know Melissa and I have gone crazy trying to figure out which classes are getting new Chromebooks, where are the Chromebooks, how many do we really need, And I remember even when we opened new buildings and or we walked into the media center and saw a flatbed full of Chromebooks. And we were like, why are these here? What are these for? And they kind of just put them there and get them out of the way. And it's like, well, these should be, be rolling out to certain things. So that was, that firm's obviously no longer with us. But now we're cleaning it up and making sure that, going forward, we're on a solid replacement schedule. We know going forward what Chromebooks are expiring, what needs replaced, and things like that. Also, we haven't really had this discussion too much, but I know in the past, there's been discussion about what we do with the old Chromebooks. And in a prior discussion a few months ago with Mr. Renwick, he kind of talked about, does it make sense to sell those Chromebooks, and he said he would rather prefer to keep them and use them for parts, because what you can get for a Chromebook is far less than what you can use for parts. So, for example, he had mentioned to me that, even though we have different brands of Chromebooks, a lot of them use the same pieces, like Dell, Samsung, Acer, and Lenovo. They all use the same keyboard and touchpads and power adapters. So you can take those old Chromebooks and use those. When we need to fix another Chromebook, you can take the keyboard off instead of spending $30 on a screen or $65 on a keyboard, or touchpads are $15, power adapters are $20. You can reuse those parts on those other Chromebooks that are still usable.
Has anybody ever studied like a ballpark of what the lifespan is on these things?
Well, I believe the ones that we are purchasing now are good till 2028, I think it was. So.
Well, we went back and forth, so it depends on what you mean by a lifespan. So a lifespan, you can look at it two different ways. One way is how long do they update? That's how long they're viable to us, because once they're not able to update anymore, we can't use them for testing or you know what I mean, or anything like that.
Yeah, it sounds
Could it last longer than that? A Chromebook could last longer than that. So I think we went back and forth in this last round we bought. It was either 26 or 28. I think we ended up going with this first order we got goes through 26. Because there was such a difference in price. That's the other thing. I mean, these large quantities are popping up to John because of the relationships he has with some of the vendors. And we're trying to jump on them as fast as we can so we don't end up in a situation like we did last fall, which is no Chromebooks coming until October. When people are calling him and saying we have 500, 600, 700 of them, knowing that we were going to need to order what typically would happen, you know what I mean, in maybe May, June, we're saying let's get them now. Let's just get them in and we'll get them imaged, and get it done so that we are backside up against the wall, because who knows where we're going to be come the summer. So that, to make a really long answer to your question, Jack, they're license-wise, they're typically around 6 years. They can be used, we could use them with primary kids and things like that, but we can't update for MAP and things like that. So
Right.
they become less viable to us.
Some get damaged, and some reason students like to put water in them. I hear stories all the time, or someone's basement flooded and was on the floor, and you lose a Chromebook that way. And, so those do happen.
We didn't have any of this money budgeted in the general fund. It's all budgeted out of
Yes,
PI
it's
fund.
all PI fund. We don't do anything.
And it
out of
never was in the general
Right.
fund.
There might have been.
At the very beginning.
Yeah, because there was even, when we did the large purchases, it was before I was here,
Yeah.
they were actually out of
We were
PI, but they were
we were going
financed.
back and forth.
Yeah, they were financed, a lot of them were financed through multiple years. I mean, there are probably some purchases of a couple here and there that might have came out of general fund, but all the large, or out of like an activity fund or something through a PTA donation, there's different, off situations like that, but the large bulk purchases for classes are always out of PI fund. The next question was regarding transfers from the general fund, specifically to athletics and nutrition services. I have another handout here. I'll pass out. And actually through everything, all the transfers for those, last, looks like I got about 6 prior years and the current year of transfers. Because there were some questions specifically related to the athletic fund and the lunch fund. So back in, for nutrition services, that one was easy. We transferred $75,000 to nutrition services at the end of the school year, this past year, and that was basically because of COVID. Usually, Michelle Gifford ends the year with around $100,000 balance or so in the food service fund. But because of the school closure, obviously we didn't serve any more meals in person, and that's why we did that transfer back then in FY20. And that was the first time we transferred funds to nutrition services since fiscal year 2015, so it was five years prior. For athletic fund, back in prior to the operating levy, we didn't really have an athletic budget. We basically would cover the negative balance at the end of the fiscal year. So you can see in 2016, 2017, 2018, there was transfers to the athletic funds. One year was $1,700, one year was $9,000, another year was $23,000. Then we just decided to commit to a $75,000 transfer each year to athletics to support the program and not just running on bare bones in the past. So each year we have done that since starting fiscal year 2019. It typically happens in the spring because in the fall, football is the biggest revenue generator, so they're able to stay afloat in the fall and then carry into the spring, and then once the spring goes on, when they need the support. So each year we've done that. Just this year we're being a little sooner than later, and with COVID we didn't know are we going to have a season and all that stuff. So now we know that everything's kind of going along, and we're able to make that transfer. Any questions on that? I also just put other little transfers on there that occurred over the years, just to kind of see for comparison. Like last year with COVID, we had transfers to the drama fund and the ski club and the 8th grade trip and the lacrosse fund. So there was other things that occurred due to COVID. There's another question about on tonight's agenda. There's the PSI contract, which is our nursing contract for the nurses and our different nurses in each building, in our clinics. That one was, we actually received the draft contract back in June of 2020. Legal reviewed in June of 2020 and provided some revisions to that contract. And typically we do a 4-year contract. We provided those to PSI for consideration to put in there. A lot of it had to do with insurance coverage, liability, kind of covering what happens if school is closed because of COVID and things like that. And then we didn't really hear back, and we kept following up for months, to be quite honest. And then it's like, well, we don't have a contract, it's not board approved, but they're still performing the work. I'm like, we're not going to pay any invoices until we have an approved contract. We've been holding on the invoices. We had some questions on one of the invoices, and then found out the person that we deal with for invoicing had actually passed away in December. So that new person has taken over for that position, and then we finally received a revised contract on February 18th. So that's why it's on the agenda tonight, as opposed to it being in school year. It's kind of funny because in board docs, when agendas are drafted, only the administration sees it. They work on the agenda. I kept pushing it forward to the next agenda, so it's a copy of. And then by the time I got to February, it's a copy of 7 times. And it's been on the radar. We got followed up, and we finally got that contract. They've been performing since the beginning of the school year, so the event now on the agenda is basically giving us authorization to pay those invoices prior to the purchase order being released from the board approval. There was another question about the asynchronous courses. We do have an MOU with the RLEA that was signed back in November, I believe. It doesn't require board approval, but the board has to obviously approve the awarding of that supplemental for asynchronous courses. So it'd be redundant to approve both. So that MOU was worked out between the two parties, and then we approved on the agenda back in December. There was one approval for a fall course, and then tonight, I think there's 2 on the agenda tonight, or there's 4 on the agenda tonight.
Can you remind me of what asynchronous courses really represent?
Sure, I would be happy to. Asynchronous means they're not happening face-to-face at a specific time. So it is more of an online, what you would typically think of an online course, self-paced, students are working on their own time. We are starting some programming, and we talked a little bit about this in the curriculum committee, where the credit recovery classes that we're going to offer, instead of having kids go through KLA, which was a program that we had, an online program that we had contracted with, we are going to run our own courses with curriculum created by Riverside teachers and run by Riverside teachers. So that's what you're seeing tonight, are the teachers who will be piloting our first round of credit recovery courses for students that are run through our own district.
Thank you.
And I'll just say our numbers are really high because some of our remote students are really struggling. So in this pilot, we did not put any remote students. So, when people hear about we're running this at Riverside, right now we just put in-person kids to pilot this. They can still do KLA. It's not like they can't do credit recovery at all. But students who struggled the first time around in a remote situation, and that was face-to-face, we decided not to put into this pilot program while we work some of the kinks out on our end because they weren't successful in that remote situation.
No questions on that one? Another one, I was a little confused on the one question about the total of the supplementals. Was that more referring to just having a total on the agenda of
It's
the
just-
dollar amount, or just knowing what supplementals cost the district each?
No, just having a total on the agenda item. Again, it's just helpful for me. I sat there with my calculator and added it all up. I just don't think that sometimes people will understand the cost of some of the things that we offer, and perhaps putting that information out there in the board agenda for anybody who decides to read a board agenda, right? Like, oh gosh, that is a lot, right? Like, so when we do tell the public, it's expensive to offer these things, and we do this and whatever, and that puts that number out there in addition to just all the separate costs. It's just one of those transparency things that I think is maybe a good idea for us.
And I did go back and look, just what is the cost of supplementals typically based on the contract. There's 3 tiers based on years of experience, and it's a different percentage of the base teacher salaries. Depending on what supplemental, different things pay different amounts. So when you look at all things like sports and academic things, mock trial, there's a professional development committee and a bunch of other ones. It ranges between $300,000 and $400,000 a year if you add up all of the supplementals and all coaches, all other outside supplementals. So it's just for reference, the full impact of those. And the last question was on the welding lab project and the budget and change orders for that. So I am going to pass out one more handout here for the welding lab.
No, your handouts are helpful. Thank you.
And I do have to say, I appreciate the conversation that we're able to have about this. Sometimes, I read the board agendas and whatever, and I'm asking the questions because it's really hard as a board member to we don't work in this stuff every day. And so it's hard for me to remember sometimes, gosh, didn't we just approve something like that? 10 months ago seems to me like yesterday sometimes when you only meet with the board once a month or whatever. And so having this kind of stuff, and I apologize for the lateness, but again, I thought that I didn't know if we'd have more revisions to the board agenda, so, and I wanted to make sure that you had those in advance, so sorry it was only last night.
I was going to say, you had a busy afternoon, right?
I couldn't get any reaction to that.
Well, but this stuff is really, really helpful, and so I would like to do more of this kind of stuff so that the board can hear some of these things too, so.
So this spreadsheet here I put together, it's kind of similar, if you remember back when we were doing the construction of elementary schools, it's similar to that where we list out all the change orders. But basically, our original contract for the welding lab for the construction portion was $213,000. At the last board meeting is when we approved the 9 change orders, and we went through that last meeting, so I don't think I need to go over that again. Tonight's agenda was an additional change order for the fencing. So if you look out next to the welding lab, there's the air gas tanks on the one side, there's a concrete pad, there's supposed to be fencing around that stuff. Originally was spec'd out as like a chain link fence with like slats in it, and we're like, well, we should probably do like a white privacy fence, kind of match what's behind the board office and other places on the site. And we had changed the size of the concrete pad, if you remember, so obviously I changed the fencing price. So tonight's agenda item, the change over $3,546 is to upgrade it to that other type of fencing and also the additional size of it. So that puts the total contract with the 10 change orders at $270,676. There's 2 other potential change orders outstanding, and they're more of optional items. Basically, when they put in the new compressor that's between the welding lab and the wood shop, there's no drain there. The old one didn't have a drain, it had a self, you had to go and empty yourself, and if you don't keep up on it, it's not good for the compressor. So one change order, they're estimating $2,000. We don't have an actual pricing yet, that's just an estimate to add that drain, kind of more of a maintenance thing instead of having to empty it. The other thing is, there's like and I don't quite understand what it is, but with the air gas tanks outside, there's like a heating thing you can have for it. There's no electrical out there, so they want to run electrical out there to that, and that's another $2,000 estimate. So I'm not sure we'll get the pricing on that, but I'm assuming that will be soon. But from an overall, I figure since we were on this topic, for the construction contract, it was $213,000. It was by Green Space Construction. They were the lowest bid. So in the more kind of the center of the page, but kind of more bottom right, I kind of listed what the bids came in at. So the next highest bid was $216,985. The next highest bid was $270,000. The other one was $274,000. So Green Space did come in lower. The change orders were not because they were low, it's because of changes in the scope of the project. We had an overall budget by TDA of $551,000 initially for the project, which was for everything. That so there was, you have your construction contract that went out at $270,000. The welding equipment was $119,000. The fume system outside was about $50,000. We originally going to build the welding booths. We decided just to purchase them. That was $17,000. And all the air gas stuff was about $10,000. So that was I didn't actually have total, the remaining budget about $83,000, and we came in lower once you factor in all the change orders and all the equipment we purchased. We still came in well under the original project estimate. So I thought this was kind of help get the full picture, and then there was the architect contract that was separate from that, and that was $30,000 for the architect fees. Any questions on that one?
I tend to forget the 550, right? So when we see all this stuff and then we're seeing all the change orders, like I don't, again, because we're not here every day, I can't remember what was that original project budget, so this is helpful.
If for whatever reason we did not have a contingency in the contract, so there wasn't any wiggle room there, which something to make sure that's in future projects. I think that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to public participation. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Education will be recognized by the Board President. Speakers are requested to identify themselves and their topic. Comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Gina's a community member. She comes to a couple of board meetings, served on a couple of committees. They actually hosted a facility plan presentation, and she was also giving us shots today.
I saw her.
I was doing the computer work.
Doing the computer work.
I was not doing
She was there.
She was there.
Details, we don't care about that.
Follow clerk.
All right, that takes us on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda provides for more efficient use of time. Any board member can remove a consent agenda item to be discussed and voted on individually. Up first, finance and audit.
Can we take item B and make that a separate agenda item? I don't know how you want to word that, like I can.
We we'll do the consent minus
minus item B.
and then we'll do the item B.
That's fine. So we have a motion to approve the items listed on the finance and audit consent agenda as recommended by the treasurer, items A through J minus item B. Did I get that right?
I'll second.
If we don't have any conversation or anything else on those agenda items, can we call the roll, please?
Did you want to do the donations?
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah, we have $4,000 from EMI Corporation to the RAVE program. We have $400 from the Mentor Rotary Foundation to Riverside Drama. And yes, I actually did have this circled, so thank you for reminding me. Because we have $191,904 from the Riverside Band Boosters for the purchase of, to go towards the purchase of their new band uniforms. And that's, like, to me, just kind of jaw-dropping, and I had circled that, and man, that's just amazing, so.
Super.
And actually, to kind of remind you guys, so back in November of 2019 is when we board approved the purchase of the new band uniforms. The district was paying for the raincoats. So that was November of 19. Then, you know, with the anticipation of the donation, but you know, we told the boosters, well, we're just issuing a PO, we're not out cash, you can hold on to it till we actually make payment. Things got delayed because of COVID. The band uniforms came in for the season, you know, in the fall, but the raincoats were still back ordered. And for whatever reason, the vendor did never invoice us for the uniforms. They were waiting for the raincoats. They didn't invoice us till January or
Wow.
either January or early February, and that's when we reached out to boosters. Okay, we finally got the invoice. We're going to make payment, and then within a few days they sent us over the donation. So because of those delays, they got to keep on the money longer. And, you know, we kind of worked together to get through that.
Good for them.
Yeah,
That's
and you know, a lot of our booster groups do some amazing things for this district, and again, that's just a testament to the parents and families that we have in this district, and you know, that's a lot of hard work from the band boosters over the years, so because they accumulate that money to replace those things when they were needed, and greatly appreciated. It's pretty awesome. And the uniforms are great. Good. Yeah. Okay. So if we don't have any other conversation on those items, can we call the roll, please?
Jennifer Harden.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Lori Knudski.
Aye.
Jack Miley.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Do you want me to read item B separately?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve item B that was on the consent agenda to adjust the permanent appropriations, have a revision of the permanent appropriations.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on that agenda item? All right, if not, can you call the roll, Mr. Petco?
Linda Grassi.
Nay.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Lori Knudski.
Aye.
Jack Miley.
Aye.
Jennifer Harden.
Aye. Motion carried. That takes us to personnel.
Sure, okay, so we have a motion to approve the items on the personnel consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent, items A through F.
I'll second.
Do you have any discussion on those items? All right, if not, can we call the roll, please?
Jennifer Harden.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Lori Knudski.
Aye.
Jack Miley.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then we have item H to approve the athletic supplemental contracts on the agenda as listed for supplementals for the athletic coaches.
I'll second.
Thank you. If there's no discussion on that, can we call the roll, please?
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Lori Knudski.
Aye.
Jack Miley.
Aye.
Jennifer Harden.
Abstain. Motion carried. Curriculum programming.
Okay. Motion to approve the items listed on the curriculum and programming consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent A through C. Any discussion?
I'll second it first.
Oh, thank
You're okay.
you. Yeah, we did that.
The school year calendar, is that just the first reading of it, or is that the, actually we're approving?
You're actually approving it.
We don't get to read.
What's that?
We don't have to
I thought we did something with it usually.
Sometimes there was different choices.
read. We
Yeah.
can read it, but-
Okay, any other discussion? Everybody good? Okay, roll please.
Tom Heck,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Jack Miley,
Aye.
Jennifer Hart,
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Motion carried. Buildings and grounds operations,
Motion to approve the items listed on the Buildings and Grounds consent agenda, items A and B, as recommended by the superintendent. May I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Any discussion? Can you call the roll, please?
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Jack Miley,
Aye.
Jennifer Hart,
aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Motion carried. And that takes us to the Board of Education update, if anyone's got anything. Okay, we are not going to adjourn to executive session, we were able to finish everything earlier, so we'll cross that out. And make a motion to adjourn at 8:45 PM, if I can have a second, please.
Second?
Thank you. And call the roll, please.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Tom Heck,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Jack Miley,
Aye.
Jennifer Hart.
Aye, motion carried. Thank you all very much.